This recording is going to cover the definition of terms, descriptive terminology, and body planes, and terms of reference. The term anatomy is the scientific discipline that investigates the body structure and relationship of its parts to each other. It is a very broad term, so it is beneficial to look at the subdivisions in order to better understand the overall field of anatomy. Anatomy can be considered on many different levels, so let's take a look. Pathological anatomy, also known as morbid anatomy, is the study of anatomy in regards to the structural changes, both microscopically and macroscopically, in the body which occurs as a result of disease. Do not confuse this with pathology, which is a broad term for the study of disease. Physiology or physiological anatomy studies the functions of the living things or how the body works. Gross anatomy or macroscopic anatomy is the study of the structures that can be studied with the unaided eye without the use of a microscope. Microscopic anatomy deals with the study of structures of the body that can be seen only with the use of a microscope. These structures are so small that they are best studied using a microscope. Included in microscopic anatomy are the following: histology. This is the study of tissues in the body which can only be effectively studied with the aid of the microscope. And cytology is the study of the structure of individual cells. Anatomy can be approached from either a systemic or regional perspective. Systemic anatomy is where the body is studied by individual systems such as digestion, circulatory, skeletal, or respiratory system. Regional anatomy will study some particular body region as a separate unit, such as the head, the chest, and abdominal areas, etc. It will soon become apparent that the fields of anatomy and physiology are intimately related. The various parts of the body are structured in a precise manner in order to perform their respective functions. Descriptive terminology and body planes. When we talk about the human body, we need to share an agreed-upon standardized vocabulary, whether we are speaking of an individual structure of the body as a system. So in order to avoid confusion, we must refer to their relative positions. A series of directional terms have been developed to help with such references. However, before we can learn what these directional terms are, we must always refer to the body in the anatomical position, regardless of the actual position of the body. The concept of the anatomical position is important in that it allows directional terms to be clear. It is very important that you memorize and understand the definition and concept of the anatomical position, which is as follows. It always assumes that the subject is standing erect, facing the observer, feet are flat on the floor, the upper extremities are at the sides, and the palms of the hands are facing anteriorly or towards the front. Terms of reference used in descriptive anatomy are important and useful in describing a relative location and positions of various bodily structures. Therefore, it is imperative that you become familiar with the following directional terms, so as you will definitely see them used repeatedly as we delve further into the anatomy of the body. So let's take a look at the various terms. The prone position refers to a subject lying face down or with the anterior surface down. The supine position refers to a subject lying face up or with the anterior surface facing up. Anterior or ventral means toward or closer to the front of the body. Posterior or dorsal means towards or closer to the back of the body. For example, the sternum, which is our breastbone, is anterior to the vertebral column. The vertebral column is posterior to the sternum. Medial refers to something that is located towards the midline or center of the body, or median plane of the body. Lateral refers to a location from the median plane or towards the side of the body or body part. For example, in relation to the nose, the eyes are lateral. In relation to the eyes, the nose is medial. Superior, cephalad, cephalic, and cranial. These four terms refer to a structure that is located towards the head or upper part of the body, or away from the feet. Inferior or caudal is the opposite and refers to a structure that is located towards the tail end or the inferior end of the body, or away from the head. Proximal literally means nearest. The technical definition refers to something that is located towards or closer to the point of attachment of a limb to the trunk of the body, or closer to the point of origin. Distal means to be distant, therefore it relates to something that is further away from the point of attachment of a limb to the body, to the trunk of the body, or farther from the point of origin. Distal and proximal are most widely used when referring to the limbs or extremities. Each limb is attached to the body at the proximal end. The hand is farther away and it's at the distal end. So we can say in relation to the elbow, the wrist is distal. Why? Because the wrist is farther away from the trunk of the body. Deep. Deep refers to something that is located away from the surface of the body or towards the inside of the body. Superficial pertains to something that is near or on the surface of the body. Parietal relates to or forming the outer wall of a body cavity. Visceral pertains to organs or the covering an organ. We will study visceral and parietal in more detail in the section dealing with membranes. Internal, within the body. It pertains to the inside of the body and is the opposite of external. External pertains to the exterior. It's the opposite of internal. Peripheral is located at or pertaining to the periphery or outer surface of the body or body part, occurring away from the center. Central is situated at or pertaining to a center or central point. Okay then, we now know that it's important to know that whenever we are describing a structure, we must always assume the anatomical position. So what about movement? Let's take a peek at some of the more common terms. When we get to the study of the various articulations of the body, we're going to add some more. So flexion is a muscle action that decreases an angle at an articulation or joint. Think of bending your elbow. Extension is a muscle action that increases the angle at an articulation or joint when you straighten or extend your forearm. Abduction, abduction, is a muscle action that moves an extremity away from the midline of the body. Adduction, or adduction, is a muscle action that moves an extremity towards the midline of the body. Supination, the act of rotating your forearm so the palms of your hands are facing superiorly or anteriorly. Pronation, the act of rotating your forearm so the palms of your hand faces inferiorly or posteriorly. How can you remember the difference between supination and pronation? SAS and PIP. The first letter gives the muscle action, and the second and third letters describe the position of the palm of the hand. So SAS, S is for supination, A is for anterior, and S is for superior. PIP, P is for pronation, I is for inferior, and P is for posterior.